Hello, everybody, and welcome back to M&J Games. I am Michael, and today I'm really excited because we are looking at the final result of the Giga Coaster that I made as part of this Giga Challenge. But I'm joined by Derek from EliteCoasters. So, Derek, how are you doing?
Great. How you doing today?
Doing good. And for those of you who don't know, Derek is an amazing No Limits 2 creator, and I had him on the channel before to look at a park. So I'll put the link to that in the description. I'm really excited to get your insight here. You can check out his YouTube channel, as that link will also be in the description. But right away, I love the view that you're able to get of Lift. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Orion at Kings Island when you
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I
walk
was
into
thinking initially.
and so I think it worked out really well with how I was able to kind of create the path and stuff around it. So what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think this looks great. Just like what you said about just kind of giving the Orion vibes there. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I will say, so for those of you that haven't watched this from the beginning or seen the beginning episode, the supports and stuff were not actually created by me. It was a part of this creation on the workshop, and the description said create a Giga basically with it. So I thought, okay, I'll do a Giga challenge. I'll see what kind of layout I can create with this. And so as you can kind of see at night how that's lit up, and it looks really good.
Yeah, I remember seeing you do the lighting up that lift hill. I think that just looks really great. And I like how this entrance
Yeah.
here is right between the sign. That's a really cool touch.
I appreciate that. So I was getting an idea. So I call it Steel Vigor, and I'm just terrible at naming rides. And so I just kind of thought of Steel Vengeance. They kind of have the chains that hang it down. And Vigor is, I was looking up words to mean like powerful or forceful, and that was one that kind of showed up. So I was like, oh, okay, I feel like that's a good name to use
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I like the lighting on the supports there. That looks really cool.
Yeah, it's. I think on the first episode, I kind of go in there a little bit and see, and so basically he
Yeah.
used the really thick beams, and he kind of hid them in there. And then this is impressive. Like this is the fairy tale light streams, I think, essentially, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of clumped to where it's like each of these represents like 500, essentially. So pretty crazy.
Dang. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but yeah. So in terms of, and this is the transfer track area. Do you make
Nice.
and No Limits, do you like making Giga coasters and stuff like that, or Giga slash hypers? Are they one of your favorites to make, or do you kind of lean more away from them?
Well, I mean, it really depends on how I'm feeling. Like it's nice to make a Giga, but it really just depends on what kind of coaster I feel like making, because I feel like over time I've really gotten the hang of different like element shaping. So recently I went back and made a B&M Giga. That was actually like taking inspiration from the one you did in the Wild Winds Park. I was watching that and I'm like, hey, I should make a B&M Giga. So I feel like
Yeah.
it just really depends on like what my inspiration is for that. Because sometimes I see something like I should make something like that. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because when I saw that, I was like, man, this gig is great. I remember that now. This is a really, really good job. So I recommend everybody go check that video out. So now it's got 10
nice.
airtime hills, and we looked at the stats. So it gets close to 100 miles an hour. It's about 330
Mm-hmm.
feet. And one thing I wish they were able to do, I don't know if they do they do this in No Limits too, where you're able to have a variable lift hill speed.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one thing that I wish they would have in Planet Coaster, because that's what you see obviously with the Gigas, but we'll talk after this coaster. All right, so we're going to take a night ride on the coaster as well, just to kind of get a view of the visual of the lights and stuff. And while we do this, Derek, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I feel like I can just kind of give feedback. Now that we have another POV, I can just give feedback as the elements go. Yeah, I just really like this view of the it at night, and of course the lift hill lighting is just so cool. And yeah, I would say one thing I noticed with, I know you didn't like make the lift supports and stuff, but like generally with Giga coasters, you kind of have not one big support in the middle. You usually have like two massive supports. That's just my one feedback for that. But either way, it just looks really cool. I like the camelback after the drop. Taking that with a ton of speed would just be so much sustained like floater airtime. That would be really cool. Just kind of like a bigger version of Mako, what everyone loves about Mako's airtime hill. This turn around, I feel like it could be like a bit more speed. It kind of crawls through there, and the shaping isn't very pronounced. But I can see like kind of like Leviathan's far turnaround. I can see the inspiration from that. So if that's what you're going for, then I think that's good.
Yeah, I was going for that a little bit, and also like not necessarily Fury style, but I think I just got on Fury when I was doing part of this, and I didn't like how the layout I had before that, and then so I kind of did that, and yeah, I do agree. I think after I kind of finalized everything, I was like, oh man, it kind of crawls through that.
Yeah.
What about all
like
these airtime hills and stuff?
I like how it has kind of like a almost twister section here at the end, wherein you just kind of, most Gigas, or I should say, yeah, pretty much every Giga except for like I threw a 5 just kind of has a big out and back layout. Like you could say the same about Millennium Force. But all the B&Ms, it's like a big out and back.
Right.
But this has just a really prominent twister section, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. And so like my idea with the layout was, I love Fury. Fury is, to me, it's a perfect ride because it actually does have a lot more airtime than you would expect, you know, which that view, the lighting in this game can just be so good. Like that is amazing.
Yeah, that lighting looks really good.
Yeah, and so like my idea with this was I wanted to have it a Giga but feel like a hyper, if you know what I mean, in terms of like Gigas.
I see that.
Seem to be so much more about speed and low to the ground, and I wanted it to really be about airtime. And so I mean I think Fury has a lot of airtime, and it's definitely underrated. Like that second half is just a ton of good airtime hills. But I feel like when you think about Fury, you don't think about airtime, right? You think about speed, you think about flying by the entrance and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was kind of my idea with this layout, was just I just wanted to fill it with airtime.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue when I would be able to ride Fury, but just like, it just looks so good. Like, pretty much everything about that ride, just the speed. Like, I'm a huge fan of any feeling of speed you can get on a coaster. Like, that's a really underrated part of, like, that's the reason I like Millennium Force so much. Like, I'm personally a big fan of Millennium Force. Just the feeling of speed is just so cool. But then Fury also mixes in that airtime, and of course the B&M Giga drop, like the shaping on those drops. Like, I've ridden Orion, so I can speak from experience saying that Orion's drop is my favorite drop. So anything close to that is really good. So
yeah, Orion's drop is amazing. Now, real quick, we got about 40 seconds, but I want to get your opinion on something with Orion real quick, because I want to see if you agree with me. Orion front row is insane because of the speed and the feeling it'd be in the front. Orion in the middle to the back is very average because the one major airtime hill, the trim kills it if you're in the back. Agree, or did you experience it?
I haven't ridden in the front. I got all my rides in the back because I got my first ride in the back and I liked it so much. I'm like, the drop in the back is so good, and same with that final like twisting hill, off-axis hill at the end. I was like, so I didn't even ride in the front. I was just like, I'm just going to do the back every time. So, honestly, I can't even give you a good opinion on this. Yeah. But I would disagree and say that the back is awesome. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my that's my recommendation for anybody who's going to ride Orion, is ride front row, and then you can ride the back and see what you thought. But I thought front row was just, like, the feeling of not having, like, you feel so unsupported, right? And you kind of hang on the first drop a little bit, and oh man, it's so good. Same thing with Fury. Fury front row, amazing. Well, Derek, thank you so much for joining me, for checking out this video.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, so make sure to go check out his channel. The link's in the description below, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day.